Good evening, everyone. December 4th, 2019. It gives me great pleasure to welcome everyone to the 2019 Annual Organizational Meeting for the Halton District School Board. As per the Education Act and the board's bylaws, as director, I will conduct the opening portion of the inaugural meeting of the board. To begin, I will ask Trustee Joanna Oliver to provide the acknowledgement of traditional lands.
Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis, from the Anishinaabe to the Arawandron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you, Joanna. I'd also want to acknowledge in the room we have Controller Jackie Sweetman, and we have Kathy Proctor, President of ETFO, and sorry, Mike, I don't know the last name, from the Executive of ETFO. Bernard? Mike Bernard, thank you. I'd apologize. It's my husband and my two fathers. I'd like to call attention to the item on the agenda regarding declarations of possible conflict of interest. If trustees have a potential conflict with tonight's agenda items, I'd ask them to declare them now. Nope. Next is approval of the agenda. We need to note the addition of item 5.1, ratification of matters from private sessions. Subsequent items will be reimbursed sequentially. What did I say? Renumbered? Yeah. Reimbursed? Renumbered. These glasses are a bit dirty. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda, please? Moved by Tanya, seconded by Donna. Trustee Rocha and Trustee Daniele. Trustee Daniele. All in favor? I don't, just put your hands up. Yes. Unanimous. Carried. Now to the election of chair for the 2019-2020 school year. Because there's a word missing there. In accordance with the board's bylaw, I will now call for indications of interest in the position of chair by randomly drawing the names of trustees from this container. As their name is drawn, each trustee will be given the opportunity to indicate their interest and/or indicate their support for any other trustee. I'm doing this for suspense, taking a bit longer.
I'm holding on to it before it lands on the floor.
Trustee Tracy L. Harrison.
Thank you very much for asking. No, thank you.
Trustee Leah Reynolds.
Thank you. I will pass. However, I would like to show my support to Trustee Grabentz for chair.
Thank you. Trustee Grabentz.
Thank you very much, Trustee Reynolds. I would be honored to serve again.
Okay, so she goes here in this pile. Yeah, I have my system.
Okay.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you very much. Not at this time, but I too, such as Trustee Reynolds, show my support for Trustee Grabentz.
Okay. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. no, I would decline the opportunity. Thank you so much, and show my support to current trustee Grubens.
Thank you. Trustee Amos.
Thank you. Not at this time, maybe in the future.
Thank you. Trustee Garretts.
Thank you, but no, I would like to throw my support to Trustee Grubens.
Thank you. Trustee Rocha.
Thank you. Not at this time.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you. No, I would not like to run this year, and I will be throwing my support behind Trustee Grubens.
Thank you. Trustee Daniele.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, but no, my full support goes to Trustee Grubens.
Thank you. And finally, Trustee Oliver.
Thank you for this opportunity. I would respectfully decline at this time, and I would support Trustee Grubens.
Thank you, Trustee Oliver. And I know I can declare, but I wanted to say a bit more.
Oh, okay.
All right, I guess I'll just declare. Since there is only one candidate, I declare Trustee Grubens Chair of the Halton District School Board. Trustee or Chair Grubens, you get the opportunity to speak now, or you can wait till later on.
Hold on now.
Matthew, enjoy it while you can.
Sorry, I had a mint. So thank you to all of you for the support. I'm buoyed by your faith in me as chair. And I enjoy serving the board in this fashion, seeking board meeting and process efficiencies and sharing the incredible work that this board does with local MPPs, mayors, MPs, and the community at large through events and interactions with the media. We have done a great deal actually, of work over the past year, standing up for student achievement and well-being. We were the first board to react to the changes to the Ontario Autism Program model and its tight timelines and pointed out how the changes would affect our schools and families. We have actively sought out student voice, parent voice, and community input about e-learning and class size changes put forward by the ministry and outlined the detrimental effects of these policies through media releases, social media, a consultation submission, and a letter directly to the minister. Due to huge cuts in funding, we have had to pass a deficit but compliant budget that saw the stripping down of central staff and the controversial loss of the Bronte Creek project. We are seeing the seeds of that program in new pilot projects and in other ways, but we are feeling the loss of central staff in frustrating but not unexpected ways. We have been building relationships with our municipalities, the region, members of parliament, and members of provincial parliament. We see the fruit of those relationships in the granting of approvals to build and renovate our schools across our region and the possibility of the City of Burlington providing municipal transit to every student in Burlington with no increased costs to the Halton District School Board. Our government, elected officials at various levels are willing to be partners with us in advocating for what is best for Halton residents. And they know that high quality education systems are important. As we head into next year, we must look to short and long-term goals. The immediate labor issues are not small issues, but are also not ones we cannot overcome. We value all of our staff and know that they put their heart into their work every day. As we head into the next decade, as a Board of Trustees, we are now also looking at the growing environmental and mental health crises, as well as focusing on the development of our new multi-year plan. We are in the process of completing our consultation that will inform our next steps and direction for the Halton District School Board for the next 5 years. As trustees, we know we don't have all the answers and are willing to listen to student and staff voices, as well as our parents, guardians, and the broader community for input and direction. As trustees, we will continue to vigorously support student achievement and well-being and to challenge threats to public education. We will continue to demand empirical evidence in the face of changes to our system and implore the government to see us as partners in improving education, to seek appropriate and transparent funding, and to fight for the schools we need. As always, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I believe we will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Gribetz, and please accept this gavel as Chair of the Board.
Let me put my stuff down.
Don't count me on that.
Okay, we will now hold elections for the position of vice chair. Each trustee's name is on a piece of paper in this receptacle, and as I pull out your name, please indicate your interest in pursuing the position of vice chair or indicate your support for another trustee for the position.
We just took yours out. You put it back in.
Oh. Yeah,
And a
that's,
full position.
I know, that's true. Trustee Rocha.
Thank you. Not at this time.
Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. I will pass, and I will support Trustee Al Harrison for this position.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Not at this time. This is almost the same order as last time, but I'd like to throw my support behind Trustee L. Harrison.
Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you. Yes, I'm interested. Thank you.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. I'll pass at this time, but also I too would support Trustee Al Harrison. Thank you.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you, but no, I won't be running this time, and I also will be running supporting Trustee Al Harrison, and it's a good thing she said yes after a couple of people said they supported her.
Trustee Garretts.
Thank you for the opportunity, not at this time.
Trustee Amos.
Thank you for the honor. Not this year.
Trustee Oliver.
Thank you for the opportunity. I will take a pass this time, but I would like to support Trustee Al Harrison as well.
And Trustee Daniele.
I will respectfully decline, and Trustee Al Harrison has my full support.
Okay, so thank you very much. There is only one trustee seeking the office of vice chair, and therefore the position has been acclaimed. Congratulations, Trustee Al Harrison. Do you have some words? Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm feeling a bit overcome, actually. So here goes. Staff, students, and community. It's my honor to support the trustee team as vice chair as we work together to raise up student, staff, and community of the HDSB locally and to have a positive impact in education beyond this board. The vice chair role is described technically in our bylaw and our policy, but in addition to those technicalities, it's really about facilitating our narrative as a trustee team and beyond. And that's a narrative that's being created within the context of our agreements that we made to each other at the start of our term, trustee accountability, and all the rules that govern and in some cases constrain education. This has to be a year, in my opinion, of regrouping, refocusing, and recreation. There's all that potential through our multi-year plan process, for example. Re-engaging diverse voices in collaboration and retelling the HDSB story, including our achievements and the struggles, to those inside and outside of our boundaries, and to expand our circle. I believe this year should be mostly, though, one of creative re-energizing ourselves and all of those around us in service to students. I draw inspiration from disruptors whose names have become synonymous with change. Globally, I think of Greta. She only needs her first name at this point said, and we know who she is. Nationally, David Suzuki, Susan Aglicark. Locally, Steve Paquette, Chief LaForme, all of our Inspire Award recipients. My list of inspiring disruptors has students, scientists, artists, Indigenous peoples, educators, and many more. I hope that as I say my list, that you're adding the names of people who inspire you and that we can draw on that inspiration. What sets these people apart isn't some superhuman mutation from a spider bite, for example, but it's their energy and ability to speak their truths and inspire action and change to transform systems. The vice chair role is about finding the tools to support this team and facilitating democratic and inclusive processes for that change and action. So I would encourage everybody to also take this moment to think about what you see as our critical next steps for the next year, and identify the role that you want to play in writing this chapter together. And I take it as my honor and responsibility to work with the chair and all of you to weave together all of these pieces so that our narrative is cohesive, meaningful, and impactful for community, staff, and above all, for our students. So thank you again for this honor.
We're going to declare a 5-minute recess so we can move some nameplates around and perhaps take a picture.
Point of order, should we have a resolution? We don't have to destroy ballots. Never mind. Please ignore me.
Actually, we can do that now. If you're putting forth a motion to destroy the ballots, it's actually on our list. Yeah.
But there are no ballots to destroy.
Oh, there's no ballots. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Can you say that again? No, I like the way you said it.
Oh, good. So 5-minute recess, please. And yeah, so if we could get a picture. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are now up to 3.0 on our agenda, which is delegations, presentations to the board, and we don't have any this evening. So skipping right down to 4.0, which is consent agenda items. I'm going to put the motion on the floor. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information items for December 4th, 2019. Moved by Trustee Amos, seconded by Trustee Gray. Is there any discussion at all? Okay, so actually, I believe I had a okay. Okay, so the administrative procedure update, report 19145, the guide dogs, service dogs, and service animals. Could you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Drabens. We asked that this be pulled out because this is an administrative procedure and there is not a policy yet. The policy is being written and will come through. This is essentially, and I'm looking at Superintendent Zonnefeld, this is essentially verbatim as to what the ministry has given us, though, and as will be the policy. So there's not a lot of change, but I thought it was important that we pull it out for trustees to see because we don't actually have a policy yet, but now we've got an admin procedure. The policy is coming forward. Anything to add? No?
Okay, there's no other questions, so I will call the question. Okay, all those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Oops, I'm lost. Okay. We are now up to ratification action items. As per the amended agenda, approval of business transacted in private session. Vice Chair Al Harrison, do we have any business from private session that requires approval?
Yes, we do. There are 2 items. So I will proceed with item number 1. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the goals for the Director of Education for the 2019-2020 school year and that the Director be directed to post them on the Board's website. Be it resolved that a meeting of the Director's Performance Review Committee be struck to review and amend as necessary the Director of Education Annual Performance Review Policy and develop a governance procedure at such time as a template or other guidance becomes available from the Ontario Public School Board Association, OPSBA, and I so move.
May I have a seconder? Trustee Garretts, thank you very much. Is there any debate on this at all? Seeing none. Here we go. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And you have another item?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. It is, be it resolved that the HDSB approve matters from private session December 4th, 2019 regarding negotiations, and I so move.
May I have a seconder? Trustee Amos, thank you very much. Is there any discussion at all? Seeing none. All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much. And that carries unanimously. Okay. We are up to action items for this evening. May I draw your attention to 511 Audit Committee Governance Policy Procedure Report 19144, submitted by Trustee Gray on page 28 of your board package. Trustee Gray, would you like to move this? And seconder, Trustee Reynolds, thank you very much. And I'm going to read the recommendation. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the Audit Committee Policy and Audit Committee Governance Procedure as appended to Report 19144. Trustee Gray, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I neglected to jump aboard and ask for one small change to the motion, and that the word governance should appear between Audit Committee and policy on that first line. That's just a housekeeping, but this document came to the Board of Trustees 2 weeks ago. Since that time, there has been a few changes, only in the sense of housekeeping and I guess providing some greater clarity between what is the board, as in the HDSB, and what is known to be the board, as in the Board of Trustees. And I thank both trustees Collard and Rocha for helping to bring that to our attention, and the work of course, Superintendent Nagoy, and also General Manager Gortmaker has also helped in creating a cleaner version of this. But as you can note in this document, it has been vetted through legal counsel. It does replace the prior versions of the Audit Committee Administrative Procedure in terms of reference. And I'm very, very happy to see this come before the Board of Trustees tonight for your consideration of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take any questions, I just am looking for unanimous consent to insert the word governance between audit and committee. Yep, nods across the board. Anybody not in favor of that? Okay, it's all good. Okay, so please consider it adjusted. Thank you very much. Okay, any debate on this at all? Seeing none, I just wanted to thank you very much for the hard work of the whole committee to get this together. And so we will now vote on this. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd now like to draw your attention to item 512, Boundary Review, Samuel Curtis Estates, Report 19134 on page 42 of your board package. Superintendents Etov and Padrabaric, welcome. I'm just going to ask for a mover. Vice Chair Harrison, excellent. And a seconder, Trustee Collard, thank you very much. And I'll read the recommendation. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board adjust the boundaries for the elementary schools in ERA 103 and 112 as outlined in option 2 and detailed in report 19134 effective September 2020. And be it resolved that the Halton District School Board adjust the boundaries for the secondary schools in SRA 100 and 102 as outlined in option 2A and detailed in report 19134 effective September 20th. Is there any debate at all? Gentlemen, would you like to speak to this at all?
No, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Trustee Shuttleworth.
All right, thank you. This question kind of comes on this action item as well as one coming up later on in the agenda tonight. In looking at the sort of the population decrease of the schools in ERA 103, in particular Pineland Public School. So there's a decrease of 1% coming from this boundary review. However, in a future discussion we're going to have a little bit later this evening, there's also the decrease being seen because of the change in French enrollment programming. So overall in the board, French immersion enrollment has gone down 10%. So if you look at that in terms of at Pineland, which is a French immersion school, the decrease would be somewhere around 11%, and in the books, or in the numbers, it said getting it down to 63%. My question is there concern for the viability of programming at that school?
Yes, through the vice chair. No, there's at this particular point in time, there's certainly no concern with the viability of programming going forward. I think there's probably numerous factors when we're looking at overall reduction in enrollment, particularly in our southern schools. So when you look over into Oakville, same sort of thing in those schools. When you look at their enrollment projections, whether that's English or French. The French piece, of course, with the program changes that are still very recent. It's while we have had projections and we have some initial data that I know that's in front of you for your review. It's still very early to be able to really look at that from any sort of a longitudinal way, given the relatively small sample size that we're dealing with. This particular, the students impacted at Pineland with this particular review is a total of 9 students. So it's an exceptionally small group of students. There traditionally hasn't been a large uptake from the Samuel Curtis Estate subdivision into Pineland, and that's reflected in the low numbers. So overall, the impact from this particular study on as it relates to that question would be quite negligible.
Okay, thank you. My question was just concerned because although the school is in that ward, most of the students that come from it are from Ward 4, so I was just concerned with the population that I represent. Thank you.
Hey, Trustee Shuttleworth. Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So thank you very much for all of the communications that went out to families throughout the process. I was a bit concerned that we didn't hear from anybody for delegations or writing in. So I did reach out to the families that have been in touch with me over the years with or without interest in moving this process forward. And I did hear back from a number of people just saying that they're supportive of the recommendation and also appreciative of the approach that was taken by staff to working with individual families to understand what the needs of their particular families and students are. So I think that it's a great solution, a great recommendation to bring those students back to Oakville schools, and it becomes more of an intuitive scenario then for Oakville ratepayers, although there's not a direct line there, but Oakville ratepayers to go to Oakville schools. So thank you very much, and certainly I believe our schools look forward to welcoming these students or the students that come in the future from this area.
Okay, there are no more questions, so I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now up to communications to the board. First off is item 6.1, student trustee reports. Trustee Lau and Trustee Burns, do you have a report for us this evening?
Greetings all. Trustee Lau and I hope that everyone is doing well in this busy time. Over the past 2 weeks, Trustee Lau and I have been invited to 2 separate Super Council meetings after attending Trustee Shuttleworth's. As Trustee Lau is unable to attend Trustee Roche's Super Council meeting at Oakville Trafalgar High School due to some previous personal commitments, I was able to attend on behalf of us both. At the Super Council meeting, I explained the roles of student trustees and the Student Senate, while also describing a number of other student initiatives in the HDSB, including some of the goals that Trustee Lau and I hope to accomplish during our term. I also detailed some of the current developments in environmental protection within Halton. On December 16th, I will also be attending Trustee Oliver's Super Council meeting to continue speaking about the roles of student trustees and student initiatives in the HDSB. Trustee Lau and I would like to thank both Trustee Roche and Trustee Oliver for the opportunities that they have given us to spread awareness of student voice within Halton. On another note, the next Student Senate meeting on December 10th will be hosting two guests that Trustee Lau and I have invited to speak on their knowledge of environmentalism in the HDSB and where the future might take us in that regard. Both Superintendent Puccetti and Suzanne Burwell have agreed to attend, and as they are both very well versed on a subject that student senators have indicated that they care about, Trustee Lau and I are very excited to welcome them to Student Senate, and we thank them for their time. Now I'll pass it off to Trustee Lau for an update on some other Student Senate affairs.
Thanks, Trustee Burns. Hi, everyone. During our last student trustee report, we mentioned that we were looking into having a forum for grade 7 to 12 students in Milton who are interested in sharing their opinions on topics like bullying, drug and vape policy, mental health, and the environment. We plan to have schools send a few students to represent their schools, so we would be able to hear from the students that we don't normally hear from. And this would also work to bridge the equity gap between our board regarding student voice. However, instead of running it this month, we've decided to postpone this forum until the new year, and we look forward to bringing it up again. For the next item of business, I'd like to highlight some of the great work done by our Burlington Regional Director who sits on our Senate Exec Committee, Daniel Nixon. A few weeks ago, I reached out to our entire executive committee and I spoke to each and every one of them, so there are 11 of them, and I spoke to each of them individually about initiatives that they were passionate about pursuing. And Daniel and I had a very long conversation about some of the major issues that youth face today, and we settled upon youth opportunity, and more specifically, volunteer hours. He was very passionate about increasing the awareness of the possible opportunities. So he decided to create a hub of volunteer opportunities on one very large Google document with over 25 organizations with 25 different respective contact information, eligibility, and time commitment. And we're going to be sharing this document with Burlington senators within the next couple of days, and they'll be able to distribute it within their schools. So if there are any Burlington trustees that are interested in sharing this, I can send it to you as well. Yeah. And we were thinking of perhaps expanding this to Oakville and Halton Hills and Milton as well with the help of our executive committee. But we think that this is a great step. So we're now open to questions. Thanks.
So there are no questions at this time, but I am very excited about that volunteer sort of hub, database, whatever it is, because yeah, students do find it hard to fill those volunteer opportunities, and it would be nice to have a choice, actually, instead of them running to the first thing that comes to them, and I think it's a great thing that you're doing. Students for students. It's wonderful. So thank you very much for your report. Okay, so now we're up to action items for December the 11th. One moment. Okay, so the item, student use of guide dogs, service animals, policy, report 19151. There has been a nudge from the director that could actually pass this evening, as it is a actually comes straight from the ministry. And there will be no changes to it. Would anyone, thank you, motion to waive the rules. Thank you very much. Trustee Daniele, seconded by Trustee Garrett. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on that at all? Since it is a ministry policy, it's really out of our hands.
Point of order, we're not really waiving the rules.
We're
just moving it up.
Okay, we're just moving
it to a different section of the agenda.
Okay, if everybody's happy with that, that's fine. Okay. Oh, we approved the agenda already. So I guess we have to suspend the rules. Here we go. Motion to suspend the rules. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. So now I'm going to read this into the record. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the student use of guide dogs, and service animals policy as appended to Report 19151. Okay, is there any discussion at all on this policy? I think we should be able to ask questions about the procedure as well. Would you accept questions? Yeah. Yes. Okay, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question is with respect to something in the procedure, and that is it's under implementation. After approval is granted, there's a long list of notices to the community, including via social media. I wonder how this jives with maintaining the privacy of the student. Same for the records under number 3. And where does that information reside, and is it ever reported?
So through the trustee to the vice chair, the requirement there is that we need to inform the community so they're well aware that there is a service animal in the school. However, we don't need to divulge the personal information about the student. So it doesn't go to the detail of the student's name or if they have a diagnosis or anything like that. It's simply the awareness that the animal is present in the school so that the community and the public is aware when they enter the building of the service animal.
Okay, Trustee Gray.
Yes, through the chair to Superintendent Zonfeld, I note that there was a presentation made to SEAC on December 3rd, and I just wondered if you could comment on the response by the members of SEAC to this report.
Through the chair to Trustee Gray, I thought the trustee went well and that the was well received by SEAC. We had very few questions. Partly because I premised the presentation at the beginning saying that we have a protocol that we've been using for a number of years. We didn't create an administrative procedure because we knew the ministry was bringing this expectation forward for all boards. They had signaled that a while back, and we were actually ready to go with developing our AP and stopped at that point because we didn't see the point of bringing an AP into effect that then would be then changed and sending any mixed signals. So we just stayed put, and we had what we termed a protocol that we've been using for a few years now. And so when the ministry finally came forward at the end of the summer with PPM 163 that outlined the expectations for boards, our protocol matches up almost identically with it. So really, there's very little change in practice for us at all. So when I premised that for SEAC last night, we got very few questions.
Okay, there's no more questions on the list. I have a question, and it's just, so we have a protocol that we've been using, so that means we do have students in our board right now. How many students or how many service animals do we have in the board right now? 5 currently. Okay, and has there's been any issues at all under our current protocol?
No, we have certainly have had more requests than that, and so we vet those with parents and work that through in making those decisions. We sometimes have service animals come in with students, but then depending on the needs of the students and how well it's working with the service animal, sometimes the animal doesn't come to the school anymore. So that number of 5 fluctuates a bit depending on the circumstances, but we've had really very, very few problems, conflicts. It's all worked quite well.
Okay, good. Okay, there's no more speakers, so we're going to vote on this. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so we are up to number 622, Trustee Expense Policy, Report 19152, on page 51 of your board package, submitted by Trustee Collard. Would you like to move that, Trustee Collard?
It's not till next week.
Oh, yeah, not till next week. So
but I can speak
would you
to
like
it.
to speak to it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The changes in this policy came about as a result of trustee comments made during Committee of the Whole regarding some unclarity about the transportation portion and how that worked, as well as some questions about which conferences were being paid for by which account and how does that work. And so I teased it out, added some, I think I added 4 not bullets, but sections. And then it came about when I was ready to bring it to the board, Trustee Rocha pointed out that we had inconsistencies in the terminology for the word board. And I looked at that and I went, oh my gosh, you are right. And I went and made all of those changes, and she vetted it and said, I got it. So I hope I got it. So if there are any questions, please let me know.
I don't believe there are any questions at this time. So perhaps next week it comes back. Okay, so the next item is number 623, Banking Resolutions, Report 19155, on page 58 of your board package, submitted by Superintendent Nagoy. This is actually an item that has also had a nudge by the director that if it could pass this evening. It's banking resolutions. It's not really anything that the public will comment on, should we pass it this evening, but it's kind of an important thing for us to have in place. So we'll speak to it and then probably suspend the rules and then going forward. Trustee Shuttleworth, you had something to say?
I just had a quick question because I just was saying to Trustee Gray and Trustee Collard, I remember going through this last year, and didn't we create a rule so that we don't have to suspend the rules for these?
Yes, but
We made a mistake on this one.
They should be up, slotted up. So that's
sorry.
There's been a oopsie.
It's an oopsie.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
Because we put it in the wrong place.
Yes, and
it was intended to be in the right place.
Yeah.
But
yes, your heart was in the right place. Okay, so I'll read the resolution and then we'll talk about it, and then probably suspend the rules and then deal with it. Okay, so be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the banking resolution authority to sign Appendix 1, Banking Resolution Current Expenditures, Appendix 2, Banking Resolution Education Development Charges, Appendix 3, and Banking Resolution Facsimile Signatures on Checks, Appendix 4. Moved by... Oh, no, this is... Okay, we'll suspend the rules. So suspension of the rules. Move to suspend the rules. Thank you. And second, Trustee Gray, seconded by Trustee Collard. Okay. Any discussion on suspending the rules? Seeing none. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We will deal with this evening. Okay. Superintendent Ngoy, would you like to speak to this?
Through the chair, yes, thank you. Just a couple of quick things to point out. The trustees annually approve the banking resolutions, and I wanted to point out that the limit for borrowing in aggregate for both the operating expenditures as well as the education development charges related expenditures remains at $135 million per year. The resolutions are attached to this report, and they cover signing authority, check signing, as well as the ability to seek short-term borrowing in order to meet financial obligations for the board. One change in Appendix A is that we have added the manager of budget as a backup signing authority to the controller of financial services. Thank you.
Okay, may I have a mover for this? Trustee Shuttleworth and seconded by Trustee Daniele. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any questions or any debate on this? Seeing none. Okay. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. We are now up to 623 revised estimates, 2019-2020, report 19147 on page 64 of your board package. Superintendent Ngoy, the floor is yours.
Through the chair to all trustees, I'm pleased to present trustees with the revised estimates for 2019-2020. The numbers within this report reflect the updated enrollment as the actual enrollment as of October 31st and the projected enrollment for March 31st, as well as additional information that was released since the original budget was approved back in June. Enrollment exceeds the projections by 231 average daily enrollment, and this growth is reflected by an increase in both the revenue and the expenses. Overall, the board is estimating an operating surplus of $2.5 million before the proposed additions of one-time initiatives that support our multi-year plan, as well as the inclusions from past commitments, including retirement gratuities, rollovers from the prior year, and committed capital. When we take all of these into account, the revised estimates reflects a $3.9 million deficit. Similarly with the original budget, trustees are required to approve an in-year deficit elimination plan for all those items that are more operating in nature and not based on prior commitments, that these have to be eliminated within a 2-year period. The items that are listed in Appendix A, at the top of the Appendix A, and I will walk trustees through the appendices in a little bit more detail, are the items that requires trustee approval for an elimination, and they are one-time in nature to be dealt with in the current year. If we do go through the report and we go to Appendix A, this is our financial position, which outlines the operating initiatives that we propose to add to the revised budget in order to support the last year of our current multi-year plan. The items include the implementation of a new student information system, computer technology supports for our schools, school improvement planning, literacy support, student achievement monitoring, some special education resources, as well as you'll see at the bottom the two rollovers from the year end, as well as the decentralized school budgets rollovers. They amount to 2.2 million before those items that are from prior commitments, which do not have to be eliminated through the 2-year period required by the ministry. If we go to Appendix B of your report, it outlines a summary of net changes in revenue and expenses. The net change in revenues is 6.4 million, and mostly is as a result of the increase in enrollment. That increase in enrollment increased our base for pupil foundation grant as well as special education. In addition, there was also an increase in the language grant for English language learners and French as a second language. This one is hard to predict. We always take the trends for the prior year, but now that we actually have the enrollment and those eligible students, it actually increased the grant. And the teacher qualification and experience grant also shows an increase. This one is mainly offset by an increase in expenses because it is based on where the teachers are placed on the grid. And at this point in time, we do have everyone in place as opposed to back in June where we estimate retirements and new teachers coming in. If we look at other revenues, rental income and tuition fees has increased slightly as well. And in terms of expenses, you will see the increase in salaries, which is as a result of increased enrollment as well as an increased salaries due to grid movements. And there's a net increase in other expenses, mainly due to an increase in legal fees and snow removal. Appendix C outlines a little more details in terms of the revenue changes. It also outlines the offset revenue. So you will note that the difference between total revenue between the budget and the revised budget, it's more about 10 million and not the 6.4 that we've mentioned in terms of the net impact. And the difference between that is the offsetting revenue that comes from deferred revenue, prior year rollovers, as well as any additional provincial grants that have been released since the budget. And in terms of expenses, some of that offsetting mainly relates to deferred revenue as well as items that are proposed to be covered through surplus. And appendices D and E provide a bit more detail in terms of the changes in revenues and expenses. Enrollment is on Appendix F, which outlines by elementary and secondary panel and by municipality the changes to budget. And the change in staffing from budget is outlined in Appendix G. And would be happy to take any questions. I also just wanted to mention that I appreciate all the work that our team has done to put this together very quickly after the year end was finalized and wrapped up. It is due to the ministry on December 13th, and as a new component being the approval of trustees for the in-year deficit elimination plan. We worked very hard to put something in front of you at this meeting and get it approved before December 13th submission deadline. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Superintendent Ngoy and her staff? Trustee Gray?
Yes, through the chair, please, to Superintendent Ngoy. In Appendix B, where In the second section, it's net increase in other income. It's listed increase in tuition fees. Just wanted to be clear on which tuition fees those might be recorded here.
Certainly, through the chair to Trustee Gray, this relates to the international student tuition, and that is based on the increase in number of students, as well as it's net of agent fees, which are estimated, so it's a combination of the two.
Okay, thank you.
Through Chair Grevens to Trustee Gray, if you'll recall, we have raised the tuition fees for this coming year because the provincial government is taking $1,300 from our fees, so we raised by the same amount as all boards have.
Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Okay, thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair. So it looks like we've made up through revised numbers and the associated grants incoming the original deficit amount that we passed in June. So now we're moving back to a deficit through one-time spending on various initiatives. So we're adding some things back in that were cut previously and or have been identified as priorities at this point in time. So I just want to check that understanding. And then secondly, I guess ask what the outlook is. Are there other revisions or incomes that can take place between now and the end of this school year that could potentially erase this budget deficit? I remain uncomfortable with deficit spending, but I'm much more uncomfortable with all of the cuts that we had to make. So I look forward to hearing your advice.
For Chair Grevens to Vice Chair Al Harrison, you are correct. Through the revised budget, we show that the original in-year deficit that we projected at budget time has been absorbed in year, and it is what we expected to begin with because it related to some implementation costs that were expected for the year, which have been eliminated, as well as some pending retirements for staffing that was identified, positions that were identified to be reduced through attrition, and they have occurred. The one item that has not been reflected in the reduction in year, and it's actually in the computer technology support, which is the fusion of technology into the classroom, is actually been included in the $500,000 proposal for the year. At budget time, that was $200,000. When we did the budget with the information we had and the amount of changes coming, we were very cautious and had taken away all of those initiatives that would support the additional initiatives that would support the multi-year plan, which we have done in the past. So trustees put a motion forward with an amount set aside from surplus to be used toward the multi-year plan, which we have not touched that budget. And we haven't done that because of the amount of reductions that we were making and not knowing exactly where we would end up. We're fortunate that we're a growth board. We're fortunate that we are also a region that is diverse, and as we can see, that is captured within the language grant increase and the increase in our enrollment. That certainly helped to increase revenues so that we can bridge the gap between the two. So if you're looking at Appendix A, the deficit amount of $2.5 million at the revised budget was the bottom line that was approved in the budget, and it's 3.9 currently. So the difference between the two is 1.4 million, although we are adding a number of initiatives, or we're proposing to add a number of initiatives from surplus in keeping with prior years. However, this time around, we've done it at the revised budget once everything settled and we had a bit more information due to the changes and missing pieces of information that we've had at budget time. I guess the other part of your question was whether there's additional revenues later in the year. We revised estimates is a lot closer to where we end the year. Where we might have savings is in some of the spending and some of the areas that we have budgeted for, and those are hard to predict, but yes, it's a possibility.
Okay, there's no more questions. Thank you very much. Okay, so due to this item, there will be a special board meeting next week on the 11th. There's many things happening that night, but one of those things is a board meeting. Okay, so moving on to the information items for the evening. We have 4 information items this evening. The first is number 631, Ops Advocacy Day Report 19153 on page 73 of your board package, is submitted by Trustee Collard. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. You have the report in front of you. If you have any questions about any of the things that happened on Advocacy Day, I'd be more than happy to answer, and I'm sure that Trustee Daniele and Chair Grabentz, who were also there, could provide answers to your questions. I do have a bit of an update. We discussed the EDC bylaw and the lost money to our board with one of the MPPs, Ted Arnott, who is Wellington Halton Hills MPP and also Speaker of the House. And he asked if I would send him more information regarding the monies lost, as well as the exemption now being given to private schools. I provided him with that information and today received a reply from him that he would take that information forward to Minister Lecce on our behalf. And I responded to him that that was very gracious of him and that we would be very pleased if he would do so. It was a wonderful meeting that we had with him. He really listened to us. I felt that he heard our concerns, and he's a great supporter of public education, so I was very pleased with the outcome of that meeting.
Okay, Trustee Shuttleworth, you have a question, comment?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Trustee Collard. I've just got a kind of more of a how it works question, because being new to this, I don't remember OPSPA or the Advocacy Day last year. I'm just kind of wondering what happens.
Well, the very first Advocacy Day was earlier in the spring, and it was only the executive members of OPSPA and staff who went to that one. This is the first one that they've opened up to all of the board of directors, and Andrea was invited as a special guest because they had a few extra spots. The day started with a press conference where we revealed the results of the Nanos research poll, which were extraordinarily in favor of public education. And touched on a lot of the issues that OPSPA has advocated with the ministry on, including lower class sizes and no mandatory e-learning classes for our students, a number of other elements as well, including Indigenous education and health and well-being of students. Then they moved forward into having private meetings with MPPs throughout the day, and there was question period, which was about an hour and a half long, I'd say, which was very interesting. We were all invited to sit in the gallery. Several of the trustees who were present were personally identified and welcomed by the MPPs. It was a very interesting setting. I don't think I would want to attend question period on a daily basis, but it was interesting to be sitting in the gallery and take note of the work that was being done by the MPPs in the room. From there, we went into more meetings with MPPs, and there was an opportunity for us to get to know some of the MPPs from different areas of the province. And the day ended with the reception that was hosted by OPSPA in Queen's Park, and several MPPs who we hadn't been able to speak with throughout the day attended that, including Mike Schreiner from the Green Party, Merritt Stiles from the NDP, former Premier Kathleen Wynne, who is now the education critic for the Liberal Party. There were a number of really high-ranking MPPs in the room, and we had the opportunity to talk with them about our local issues and concerns. And it was, there were easily 100 people in the room. I couldn't tell you how many in total. It was easily 100 people in the room. It was very, very well attended, and we felt that we were widely respected as an advocacy group, and that our knowledge and background in education was extremely well respected.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you through the chair to Trustee Collard and possibly Trustee Daniele as well. When an event such as this takes place and a lot of conversations take place between trustees and MPPs, does OPSPA then gather some of the connection points and some of the commitments that trustees may have heard? What is the reporting back to OPSPA and then OPSPA following up, or even the follow-up of trustees with MPPs? And I'm very delighted, by the way, to hear that you have corresponded with MPP Ted or not. I too find him to be a very good supporter of public education, but just wondering what's the next step? What's the follow-up? How do we measure that this had an effect and has impact?
Each of the formal meetings had one trustee acting as the recorder of what was discussed, and all of those notes were then shared back with OPSPA, who are collating the information and using that in their further discussions with the government.
Trustee Daniele, did you have anything to add?
I was just going to say, I had 5 meetings with MPPs that day, and I was the recorder in almost all of them. And it was great to have information that was recorded with each of the MPPs, what they actually knew about what we were talking about, where they agreed with us, where they disagreed with us, and most importantly, where they wanted more information. And that was shared back with OPSPA, and OPSPA will be following up on all of that. And I would expect that there will be a full report in the OPSPA Board of Directors package for February that will provide all that detail as well as all the follow-ups. Trustee Gray.
So there's no more questions. I just have a further comment that at the reception, there were several speakers, including the minister, the education critic, the former premier, and Mike Schreiner. And after they spoke, I was actually able to get a few minutes with the Minister of Education and to advocate on about class sizes and e-learning. And I actually extended an invitation since we have the highest, at the secondary level, the highest ratio of right now at 24.85 to 1. I invited him to come and see what that actually looks like in practice. He thanked me for the invitation. I have not heard anything since. But he was, I have to say, he was very open to talking with me and a lot of other trustees. He did stay in the room, which was good to see. So, yeah, so we'll move on to the next item, but I just thought I would mention that as well. Okay, so now we're up to number 632, Burlington Transit, Report 19154 on page 74 of the board package. Superintendent Ngoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to all trustees, we wanted to provide an update on the Burlington Transit initiative to provide free transit to students. At the September 18th meeting, the trustees approved a motion to support in principle the concept of free transit for students, for secondary students, and directing staff to partner with the Burlington Transit staff and determine the details of a memorandum of understanding. We had many discussions between ourselves, the coterminous board, Halton Student Transportation Services, as well as the managers of transportation from the city of Burlington, the town of Oakville, and the town of Milton. On November 22nd, we had a meeting set up at the Transportation Consortium's head office and discussed this initiative, the upcoming reports, as well as any interest from the other municipalities in following suit in terms of something similar. The manager of the transportation for City of Burlington had mentioned during this meeting that the item for free transit for students will be on the agenda on December 2nd, and again a couple of weeks later to be part of this coming year's budget, so for January 2020. Since this meeting, we did receive the package with the mayor's report to the committee, which was presented on December 2nd, and the proposal was to provide free transit to students ages 12 and under and tackle free transit to all students 18 and under in next year's budget, so in 2021. On the second page of the report, we did provide the breakdown for trustees in terms of the amount of money that we spend on bus passes by municipality. The actuals column is what our board is incurring or paying for those passes, and the split column is what the region of Halton is providing us. So the amount that we would be looking at for Burlington is just over $65,000, and they relate, I think, entirely or almost entirely to secondary students. So as of right now, we will wait to see what the initiative will be as part of this budget, and if it's not part of this budget, to extend free transit to students, all students, including secondary students. We will continue discussions throughout next year as they prepare a report to be part of the following year's budget for the city. The managers of transportation for Oakville and Milton confirmed there are no current plans for a pilot for students. The concerns were in regards to a loss of significant revenue for the town of Oakville and the ability of the current infrastructure to accommodate such a change and increase in ridership for the town of Milton. And I'd be happy to address any questions. Thank you.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Hi, I just have, through the chair, to Superintendent Nguyen. So I know from speaking to counselors that there is I'll say, an ask or an expectation that we as a board give back to sort of contribute to this, the funding towards this. So currently we are at 65,832. Do we know what it is, what the expectation of the city is for our financial obligation to help support this project?
The chair, to Trustee Shuttleworth. The expectation during the discussions that we had is that we would contribute or start with the same base funding with an increase for inflation, for example, year over year, or something to be discussed to see what would make sense in terms of increasing ridership or program selection for our board that might increase ridership and would have increased our costs in the future. As this relates to secondary students, at this moment, we cannot make a financial commitment for students 12 and under, and I would expect those are geared more towards weekend and evening or summer trips with the family in order to facilitate commuting between the GTA.
Yeah, so that's kind of a follow-up to that because, so I recognize that they've sort of shifted what we originally thought they were looking at as far as it being for high school students. But is there an expectation, because this really doesn't help us in any way as far as where our money is going, is there an expectation that we are helping to support the free transit for students under 12?
I would have to confirm for sure. I don't believe there is, because we are continuing to buy. There's no more student passes. There's vouchers now, but we're continuing to buy those vouchers and provide them to our schools and to our students, which means we need that funding to be able, or that budget to be able to do so, to continue our programs.
Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, Trustee Shuttleworth raised some of the things that I was going to also ask about, but I wonder if there's any, so the transit piece speaks to Burlington's new commitment around climate change, and certainly speaks to a number of positive things that we're working on here at the board. And I just wonder if you feel like there's any opportunity for us to encourage revisiting that secondary student piece in this budget year. I'm not sure what the impacts are. I did find their package and look, but I don't remember the numbers specifically, but I wonder, do you see any opportunity for us to revisit and encourage that for this year?
Through the chair, just as a clarification, through this year in terms of the budget year for City of Burlington, which they have to decide on this month. Certainly reaching out, it's always a good idea and useful. My understanding is the options on the table as of November 22nd were students under 12, which was more of a priority for them to align with the Go Train strategy, and maybe piloting a grade for secondary students. And then, of course, the other option would have been full implementation, which, based on the December 2nd report, does not seem to be part of this year's budget. But perhaps a piloting maybe.
Through Chair Drevens to Vice Chair Al Harrison, we have had conversations with the City of Burlington, and of course the Mayor made a presentation at Committee of the Whole. And at that time, the conversation was always about secondary school students. It never came up that under 12, so I would assume, because it was never broached with either staff or the Board of Trustees, that there's no expectation of a financial expectation from the board, and that for whatever reason, strategic, whatever reason they've chosen to go this way before the secondary, we don't know, but the secondary will come online and we'll do a pilot. So.
Okay, there's no other questions. Since this topic is near and dear to my heart, I feel like perhaps it would be prudent to reach out to the mayor at this point, just to see, if there is a possibility to encourage that pilot or something. So I will. Trustee Collard, you have something to say?
Perhaps it would be prudent to write a letter of support. I would be prepared to put such a motion on the table if the chair wishes.
That would be fine with me. So you move to do that? Anybody?
Yes, absolutely. To write a letter to the mayor and city councilors with a show of support and gratitude for the work that they've done thus far on bringing free transit to the children and youth of Burlington, and our support in engaging for future.
Okay, so we have that motion to write a letter to the mayor. Do I have a seconder on that so we can discuss this further? Yeah, Trustee Reynolds, go ahead. Do you have anything to say? Oh, you support it. Does anybody have any comments? I'm just noticing your face. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if it should be perhaps to all the council, and I'm just wondering if it's in our purview to delegate at their next board meeting, have a delegation to speak to them. I'm kind of shocked when I read this report, because I got a sense that they were very much in support of what our hope is equipping our youth with the skills to ride transit on their own. Well, I totally support younger children getting that ride. We know that if we don't get our youth looking for opportunities to either get to school or get to their jobs after school, we won't increase help them increase ridership, and we won't get more parents, get students either walking or taking the bus to school. So I'm just wondering if we should be, I'm kind of flummoxed. I think that it's not just a letter. I think we've had conversations. I'm wondering if we should approach them at their board table as they did to us.
Okay, so so we have sort of a motion on the floor from Trustee Collard. We've had a conversation, and so we have to deal with this item at this point, whether to write a letter. So, and the thought is, if we don't write a letter, then we would move to a motion to actually delegate their counsel. Yes. Okay. So first we have to deal with Trustee Collard's motion. At this time, okay, we have technical timing here, but I'm going to be asking you to vote in favor or not for writing a letter, keeping in mind that the possible next motion would be to delegate their counsel directly. When is their next board, council meeting?
I believe it's next week, but I certainly think we could do both. I absolutely don't think they're exclusionary. So I think, could we just amend the motion to include both options? I think that is.
I'm seeing nodding. Can I a unanimous consent around the board about writing a letter and delegating? I'm seeing lots of nods. So
I've just briefly jotted down in an email what the motion was and sent it to Gail and to the rest of you. So I would be more than happy to include attending their next council meeting and delegating. Absolutely.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Drevents. I do have a question, though. If you were to delegate or City Council, I'm assuming you would want staff along with you. So I'm only concerned around scheduling, and it's not that because Superintendent Nagoya won't be here next week and stuff, and I may or may not be depending on what's going on. So it's just a consideration. It's not to deter. It's to say, yeah.
So the next meeting is on the 12th. So that's the Thursday, next Thursday, Committee of the Whole budget. And delegations need to be in the noon, registered noon the day before. Okay, so we will keep that in mind as we go forward with a vote on whether to send a letter and delegate the City of Burlington. Okay. Seeing no further discussion on this, all those in favor of writing a letter and delegating the City of Burlington regarding municipal transit and in support of it for students. Vice Chair Al Harrison, how do you feel about this? Oh, the meeting is on the 10th, so that's a Tuesday. Okay. Okay, so that carries unanimously. Excellent support around the board table. Thank you very much. And we will work on that and delegate. Thank you. Okay, next we are up to number 633, implementation of new French immersion model, report 19149 on page 76 of your board package. Superintendent Salmini, welcome. I know this was also submitted by Associate Director Bogue.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to all the trustees. As you know, in June of 2016, a recommendation to change the French immersion model was approved by the board after a study was conducted by the Program Viability Committee. This resulted in a change from a grade 1 entry point into French immersion at 50% intensity to a grade 2 entry point at 100% intensity, continuing with 80% in grade 3 and with a 50% intensity in grades 4 to 8. We currently have our second cohort of students that are in this new model in grade 2. So we bring this report to you to provide an update on the French immersion uptake, the impact on small English cohorts in our dual track schools, and program implementation thus far. A few of the highlights, as the data shows in the report, French immersion uptake has decreased in the past 2 years since the implementation of the new model. In the last year of the old model, uptake was at 37%, while it was 25% and 28% respectively for the last 2 years with the new model. The change has created viable English track cohort sizes in dual track schools. Prior to the model change, we had a range of English track enrollment from 2 to 13 students with an average class size of 8 in the dual track schools that we've been monitoring. A review of the same schools under the new model indicates that in the 2019-20 school year, we have a range of students in English track classes from 10 to 21 with an average class size of 16. A little bit on program implementation. It went well in the first year of grade 2 last year. We're happy to report. I believe that the students became more comfortable based on teacher feedback as the year went on in terms of their proficiency and comfort with the French language. This year, we continue to support teachers with a focus on math instruction in French from the program department, as well as English language arts instruction in grade 3 as it's reintroduced in the grade 3 year. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, I do have a speakers list. Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. So I have a comment. As a new trustee in 2014, a parent and a community member with wonderful public schools in my neighborhood, and as a member of the Program Viability Committee, I was greatly concerned about the viability of the French and the English tracks, and specifically the viability and preservation of the English track in all of our neighborhood schools. Therefore, I'm very pleased to see that the changes of our FI delivery model have produced results in favor of viability of both programs in our dual track schools. I recognize that it is early implementation and that we need to continue to collect and analyze the data, but I'm hopeful that these results will persist and for continued successful coexistence. Finally, as a member of the French Advisory Committee, which also included student voice, I witnessed firsthand HCSB's tremendous work and thoughtful consideration that went into teacher recruitment, procurement of teacher and student resources, and the professional development and training of our French immersion staff. These efforts certainly help to explain the great gains made by our teaching staff. So thank you for this report and for your thoughtful consideration to this matter.
Through the chair to Trustee Oliver, thank you for your comments and for your support.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much through the chair. I'd like to just ask, as I look at the chart of data on the first page of the report, and I note that in 17-18 it was 25%, then it's gone up in 18-19 to 28%. I wonder if you could, if you were to look into a glass ball and predict the future, what do you think is coming? Are we going to continue to gradually slope up to where we once were?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair to Trustee Gray, I wish I had that crystal ball. I think the first year of the implementation, before people had heard anything about what the program is like, there may have been a little more of a dip. I'm feeling that now that we're into our second year, that there may be a little more out there in terms of at the schools and in the community what the program is like, how the students are doing, and that might stabilize at the new number. But again, that's just a prediction without my crystal ball, but we'll track it certainly.
Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. Through the chair to Superintendent Salmini. we have a number of dual-track schools that have large populations and require a number of portables. I was hoping that we would see, or can you share with us, has this change to grade 2 entry impacted those schools' populations? Have we seen relief in those schools?
So through the chair to Trustee Reynolds, I don't have the data for all of the schools to be able to talk to you about overall enrollment. I do have an example for one of the schools where enrollment did increase in English and decrease in French immersion, but leaving the overall enrollment the same, which wouldn't take pressure off of the portables, and it's the school that we discussed earlier. But I certainly can look into that data, but I don't have that readily available.
Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, could you comment on the demission rates between grade 2 to grade 3 and whether they're roughly consistent or different than what they would have been under the older system?
Certainly, yes. Through the chair to the vice chair. So I do have a little bit of information in terms of the difference in our enrollment last year in the grade 2 program and our current grade 3 enrollment. So last year we had 1,252 students in the grade 2 cohort, and this year we have 1,168 students in the grade 3 program, so a difference of 84 students, and that wouldn't be significantly different from previous changes between the first and the second year of the program.
Okay, and I see no more people on the speakers list. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are up to number 634, High Performance Program, Report 19148, on page 78 of your board package. Superintendent Salmini and Superintendent Newton, thank you very much.
Thank you. So through the chair to all of the trustees, we bring you this report to provide an update on the high performance program at W.I. Dick School in Milton, as well as some of the provisions for students that are identified as high performing across the district. So the definition of high performing students is that they perform or compete at a provincial, national, or international level in their sport or activity. They train for more than 10 hours a week during the instructional day, taking them away from school. In the 2016-17 school year, administrators were surveyed, and we had 124 students at that time that met the definition of high performing across the system, and then that includes the specialized program at W.I. Dick School. And this is a relatively small number in comparison to the approximately 45,000 students across our system. At that time, administrators indicated, based on their interactions with the students and families and their staff, that they provide a number of accommodations in their home schools as well as in that specialized program. Things like flexible deadlines, opportunities for independent study, use of online learning resources and platforms, and supportive and encouraging mindsets among staff. And they also indicated that high-performing students achieve well both in their activity and in their studies. And so just a little bit on the program at W.I. Dick. It started in 2011-12 school year. It is a full-day model allowing students to attend at times that accommodate their training schedules. And since the implementation of the program, there has been a declining interest and enrollment in the program. We surmise that this may be partially due to the fact that our students are finding that they are well served in their home communities with some of the same accommodations that they would receive in that program. This year we have one triple graded class of grades 6, 7, and 8 students. We've also had challenges in terms of staffing and teacher retention in that program. And so as a result, the program will not continue for the 2020-21 school year. Students that are currently in the program will be in grades 7 and 8 will be able to either return to their home school or remain at W.I. Dick in the regular English classes with accommodations to meet their training schedules. We will continue to support administrators and staff in their efforts to understand the needs of high-performing students across the system and to develop best practices for accommodating them in their community school. and we'd happy to take any questions.
Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. I certainly support this movement back to the local school or closer to somebody's workout facility. I like to see that there's some flexibility. My concern is I do worry that we may lose some students. I've noticed a lot of the private schools have been advertising for high performance athlete students, and I'm just wondering if we have if we might take note or consider noting whether those high performance students, when they're back in their school, if we track them, if they consider leaving the school. I just wonder whether we could perhaps even provide an exit interview with them to find out if they do leave. I think it's great that we're tailoring our education to individuals' needs, but I'm just also wondering if we might lose some in this process, and just getting a little bit more intel on that might help us tweak how we're delivering program to them.
Thank you through the chair to Trustee Reynolds. In our secondary schools, we have been doing this for years. So particularly in sites that have a pool right beside them, we tend to see students applying for optional attendance, such as at Iroquois Ridge, because that's where the swim program works out twice a day. The kids can get there early in the morning, run across the parking lot and get into class, and then back again for training at night. We also see that at Abbey Park, so in particular with their gymnastics program, again, when students need to train at 6 o'clock in the morning, they can train there, then they can go to Abbey Park in the afternoon, and then again return to the training facility. We find this helps with parents, particularly dual income parents, that they cannot stay home and then drive their kids back and forth and try to manage that. And so therefore, the secondary model has always been that we grant optional attendance to students that are near their training facilities in Halton. And for our grade 8 to grade 9 parent evenings, we do promote that in our schools. The trend in elementary has been that principals and their staff offer those opportunities to students when the individuals come to ask for those conditions in terms of enrolling in their school. At WIDIC, we have put forward an extensive advertising campaign to try to attract students. We have had principals go to the training centers in Milton. They have visited other feeder schools. The Milton Family of Schools is a very tight community in terms of encouraging those pieces. We have a couple of parents driving their students from Oakville and from Burlington to Milton for this program. And it's wearing on the students in terms of those commutes to make that happen for some parents. And we do find, again, it's a triple grade 6, 7, and 8 in one classroom. That's a difficult program to ask one individual teacher to lead. So we do feel that all of our schools through school programs have been given guidance on how you do make a student success model with growing success and how you can accommodate students, not only athletes, but musicians and artists. We've had students perform Billy Elliot in Toronto in the past. And we do make those accommodations. So we do feel that we are tracking our students, but we really are tracking them through the use of our principals and parents requesting those considerations.
Trustee Garretts.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Superintendent Newton. I have some genuine concerns about this. I've been contacted by some parents already. It's funny how news travels pretty quickly. I can support it if I know and I can be assured that when the students go back to their home school, that they're not having to jump through hoops with their teachers and through the curriculum, and when they ask for optional attendance, that there isn't more stress put on them to try and, again, cut through the red tape to go through the optional attendance application process. These high performers do not need any more stress than they already deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I think we have to consider the whole student, not just the athlete, not just the academics. So is there a guarantee that they're not going to have to be going through hoops to get optional attendance?
And again, through the chair to Trustee Garrett's, our optional attendance process is governed by our principals and our superintendents of the families. And there is a clear understanding that all individual students should be supported by their local teachers and their local school communities. We definitely would put this in as a piece for consideration for optional attendance. I agree with you that high-performing students do not need to go through an additional stress of whether they would be accepted or not accepted. And school programs has been supporting for a number of years students in their schools with the IPLs, helping them with curriculum design in these schools to accommodate their schedules. So guarantee, yes. Yes.
Through you, Chair Grabens, to Trustee Garrett's. We can never 100% guarantee, but what we can guarantee is we will address any issues that crop up. We're determined to support these kids, and so are our principals. Our principals, by and large, do support the students all over this board. And if there's a slip-up, I can assure you it's not intentional. And we need, sometimes we just don't have the right information, or the principal doesn't have all the information. So our guarantee is this, that we will work to ensure that it's seamless and smooth for these kids.
As a point of order, I would like to indulge the board and the staff at the moment. As Trustee Daniele had to leave the room, and this is actually her school, W.I. Dick. And so I would want to make sure that any of her questions could be answered in this public forum. So I was wondering if we could move along, but when she returns, that we can return to this item. Everybody okay with that? Thank you very much for indulging me. Okay, so there were no other speakers on the speakers list, so we'll just return when she returns. Okay, so we are now up to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion at all this evening? Seeing none. Director's report.
Thank you, Chair Grabens. I have 3 items tonight. The first one is, and it doesn't really involve Halton, but it's about public education, and it does involve Halton. We just don't have data for Halton at this point. It's about PISA results. Canada continues to perform above average in OECD reporting. In reading, Canada ranked 6th in the world. With a score of 520, the OECD average is 487. The top 5 countries were China, Singapore, Macau, Hong Kong, and Estonia. In science, Canada ranked 8th with an average score of 518. OECD average was 489. Top 7 were China, Singapore, Macau, Estonia, Japan, Finland, and Korea. And in mathematics, Canada ranked 12th with an average score of 512, or with a score of 512, the average was 489. And the top 11 were China, Singapore, Macau, Chinese Taipei, or Taiwan, I don't want to get into the politics of that, Japan, Korea, Estonia, Netherlands, Poland, and Switzerland. But I think it's important, we don't have, it's not disaggregated yet, but over the past several years, Ontario and Quebec are the highest performers in Canada, and often they're higher than the Canadian scores. So it's quite conceivable that Ontario is performing at a high, because they're only doing it by country. In previous years, we've seen that Ontario has performed in the top 5 in the world, And considering that Halton is usually in the top 2 or 3 in Ontario, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how well our students are doing in Halton in the world, not just in North America or across Canada. So I wanted to bring that to your attention since there's a lot of conversations around public education at the moment and how well we're doing here. So, and that the trustees are all wearing buttons, that they love public education. The second one is, and I'm glad Trustee Daniele's back for this because it's a teacher in one of her schools, and I've had the good fortune to go to this school a couple times to see the program that, and I apologize because I know I'm going to wreck her name here because I only ever call her Christine. Christine Wersich. She is the Teacher of the Year in Region 2. The CEC awarded Christine the Teacher of the Year award for her contribution to the welfare of exceptional children with compassion, integrity, and professionalism. As a life skills teacher at Sam Sherritt PS, she fundraised to establish a sensory room in her classroom. She promoted sensory awareness, created a sensory walk in the front hallway of the school, working with colleagues, parents, and students to build connections and community. Christine is always doing her best to make sure students get what they need to be successful. Well done, Christine. I've had the good fortune to be in Christine's class a couple of times and was invited to high tea with these students last year, and it was awesome. And to tell you the kinds of relationships that she has built with the kids that gets translated into others, two of the students are now at Craig Kielburger, and they invited me to their birthday party at Craig Kielburger. And so I went, and they call me Stewart, Director Stewart, and they're great. But that's a result of the work of that teacher that gave these kids the self-confidence to be able to do that. So well done, Christine. The last one is also good news. Last spring, I got an email from a teacher at Glenview, Carmela Wilson. And Carmela told me about her grade 6 class, or sorry, 2 students in her grade 6 class who had, they were kind of fed up with stuff, so they wanted to write a book about kindness. And so I went and visited these young kids, and they were amazing. I was just in awe of them talking about their book process and so on. So under the tutelage of their teacher, Carmela, who retired in June, these 2 grade 6 students found a publisher, and this is the product of their hard work. And they have an illustrator and everything, and it's called A Single Act of Kindness. And our 2 students are Cameron Brindle and Evan Lawrence. And I think take note of those names because they were only in grade 6, and this is what they were doing. And they spoke to me so confidently and assuredly about not only the writing process, about what's wrong with the world and how we have to fix it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they've done with this. So I wanted to bring this to trustees.
One more. Perfect. Oh, I can't see Andrea then. And Tracy, where are you?
I'm hiding.
Lean forward. Good, thanks.
So I thought as we get close to the holiday break and we're in challenging situations, I'd only bring good news stories tonight for director support. I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to return to that previous item about W.I. Dick. You could, Trustee Daniele, do you have any questions? Thank you. So Trustee Daniele.
Thank you so much for your kindness. I have a tickle that I'm not getting myself. I start to cough again. I do apologize. I did have a few questions around it. I'm the one who gave them to you. I guess the question that I have is, has there been, and I understand the difficulties with the teaching. I really do. That's where I really see the heart of this, is getting that teaching. I'm wondering, my first question is, if these students go back to their home schools, because they're on a flexible timetable, because they're able to go and do the things that they need to do, how would that work in a regular classroom without disrupting that regular classroom, is my first question.
And thank you to the chair, to Trustee Daniele. Welcome back. Last year, actually, there were the 6 students in grade 6 that we actually put in a regular grade 6 classroom because the teacher could not deal with 6, 7, and 8, the teacher that was there at the time. Just trying to manage the curriculum of 3 grades, triple grading was extremely difficult. And so with consultation with school programs and the principal and the superintendent, we were able to ask the grade 6 teacher if she would be comfortable putting the 6 athletes into a regular grade 6 class, and they shone really well, and we're able to build a timetable around their needs. So it has been done, and I do believe that Superintendent Salmini could ask how that could be implemented throughout the board.
And I'll just add to that through the chair to Trustee Daniele. We do have high-performing students in our other schools that do leave and come, and students leave the school day for a variety of reasons, and so it is something that can be accommodated with good communication between the student and the family and the staff.
So I know that last year you had a 7-8 class of 21 students, and this year it's a combined 24. So obviously those grade 8s will graduate out of it. Have you had any inquiries for the grade 6 program for next year? Like, are you getting a sense of what people are looking for? And then my next question will be, where are these students coming from? Are they predominantly from Milton, or are they traveling great distances and so would be better accommodated at their home schools?
And through the chair to Trustee Daniele, we have 2 inquiries thus far for the grade 6 program and for next year. And in terms of the number of students that are traveling, predominantly, they predominantly are skaters and gymnasts, and predominantly they are from Milton, though there are 2 from Oakville and 1 from Burlington.
If I may continue. That's interesting because when we first started, we had a very high proportion coming from Georgetown,
right,
who were skaters, and so that's not happening any longer. I do have another question. The teacher that is currently teaching this program, what will happen with that teacher? Will we be able to find a space for that teacher, or because we'll be declaring that position null and void? And I recognize it's been problematic with timetabling, and I know the union has been absolutely amazing in allowing us the flexibility to create the timetable for this teacher, and that's greatly appreciated. So I want to make sure that that teacher is also has a sustainable path forward.
Absolutely. I can speak to this particular teacher. We do not, originally when this program was designed, we were given special staffing considerations that were added to the school. We are no longer, for the last 3 years, been given special status for staffing. So this teacher is incorporated into the regular staffing and the population of that school. So like any, and the union has been extremely useful and helpful in allowing the flexibility to allow the support there for it. So it's the good gracious of both HR and the union for sure. But moving forward, this teacher would have the seniority and move into W.I. Dick's staffing. She's already part of the regular school staffing.
Thank you very much for your leniency. I do appreciate it. Sorry, I guess I'm outdated because I'm remembering in 2011 when we fought to have this program begin, and the way it had to, I didn't realize that it had changed. Has any communication gone to the parents who are currently in the program and received any feedback from them in any way? So just the fact that that's even being considered, has that been communicated in any way?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. No problem. So communications from the chair. There's a report 19146 that just illustrates what the correspondence that has happened with regards to the programs. We did receive a response from MPP or not, who we spoke about earlier. Is advocates quite a bit for our board. And we also received a response from ministry staff, Susan Gordon, regarding the programs as well. But it wasn't anything that would say they were going to reinstate it or anything. They were just explaining the program as it stands. And also, I just wanted to bring up the fact that the They have opened nominations for the Prime Minister's Excellence in Teaching Award. So if anybody out watching would like to nominate a teacher for that award, you just look up the Prime Minister's Award and you will see the nomination forms and everything that's available. Otherwise, can't think of anything else from me. So we're going to move on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports at all? Trustee Oliver.
Thank you, through your chair. The Special Education Advisory Committee met last night. We had an agenda rich in information topics and discussion topics. Mary Marshall, who's the Principal of Equity and Diversity, and Sari Taha, General Manager of Human Resources, presented on the annual Accessibility Status Report for 2018-19. Secondly, given that there was a number of concerns voiced by families of students from the Community Pathways program at Bateman who will be transitioning to Nelson about the outdoor classroom space, we had asked those families to submit their questions to one of the association reps, Melissa Dockery, who represents Easter Seals. And those questions were then incorporated into a presentation by Superintendent Zonneveld, along with Mike Wildfong, who's the Manager of Capital Projects, and Sean Marks, Principal of Student Services. So the committee received a very thorough, considerate presentation on the outdoor classroom space and addressed many of the concerns, recognizing that we are only in phase one and there is more work to be done, and taking into consideration some of the thoughtful input from the families that will be further considered. There were a number of parents in the audience, and some of them stayed back to continue their conversation with Superintendent Zonneveld. And finally, there was a presentation on the admin procedure that we saw today in our board package, the student use of guide dogs, service dogs, and service animals. And so we had a lot of great discussion, and we'll be meeting again in January. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to remind everybody about next week, next Wednesday. We have a unique committee of the whole meeting in the sense that it's combined with the community planning and partnership meeting and a special board meeting. So those two things will take place between 6 and 8. And then following that, we'll have a committee of the whole meeting where Superintendent Pennyfather will talk about PIC, and we will do our striking committee process. So please take a look at the information that was circulated in that regard, and hopefully you can fill it out in the next day or so, and that can be kind of a talking, a tool for conversation to sort all of that out. So look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Okay, seeing no other committee reports. Trustee questions and comments. Okay, no trustees questions and comments. Nope. Thank you. Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Last Friday, a number of trustees attended the Halton Pathways, the second annual event hosted at the Madam E Velodrome in Milton. And I know I've met a number of the trustees there. We were all super excited about the wonderful opportunity for our grade 10 students to explore the number of different pathways and presentations from our neighboring colleges and universities that offer training in those pathways. So I know the students were very excited. There was a lot of hands-on experiential learning. So great event. And I think for the sake of all our future students, we hope that this will continue. Thank you.
Trustee Garrett.
Thank you, through the chair to everyone else. Just to piggyback on what Trustee Oliver was saying, Friday was phenomenal. It was the kids were so engaged. And one of the things that, and feedback that I got from a number of people was, it would be really nice if it started a little bit later in the day. The buses come in and out, and then it stay open a little bit later so that the parents could come and see what the opportunities are, the employment opportunities and the learning opportunities that are available to our students. Because the input was that perhaps parents aren't really aware, we're all still learning how many amazing opportunities there are for kids out there. And if they could come and see that a child doesn't have to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, or an accountant, that there's so many other opportunities, it may change some mindsets.
Okay, Trustee Gray.
Thank you, through the chair. Just very quickly, on behalf of the trustees that were present Thursday night at the PIC meeting in Milton, it was a very informative evening where representatives from all across the region of Halton were in attendance. I want to thank Superintendent Padre Barrick for his informative presentation, and I look forward to the next PIC meeting that we have. It was very engaging and I think very worthwhile for everyone in attendance. So thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. It was a great meeting. So our agenda is exhausted, and okay, I need a motion to reconvene rise into private, reconvene into private session. I'm tired today. Okay, I was up last night for various reasons. Thank you for your motion. I need it seconded by Trustee Gray. Thank you very much. Any discussion at all? No? All those in favor of reconvening into private session? Vice Chair Harrison, how do you feel about that? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And have a great week. We will see you all here next week, should you be interested.